Hello YouTube, here's my boy.
Press the applications bell and the subscribe button in below.
And thank you.
And thank you.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. If you don't mind, please subscribe, like, and share. I want to talk a little bit more about solar. I'm going to try to explain my system the best I know how and the progress I've made. First, I'm going to start out with solar panels. I've got 3 different arrays of solar panels, which consist of 4 panels on each one. I've got a group together array that's 1305 watts total. I got another one at 1100 watts, which I just recently installed. Then I got another one at 1220 watts, which gives me a total at 3625 watts. Now, I do have 3 different controllers, and they're 60 amps each. Now, when you're setting your system up, even though you could get by with a less amperage controller, I wouldn't recommend it because you'd be pushing it to its max. Because these panels, like the 1305, it's going to hit pretty close to the max. It's when it's hitting its peak performance, which is 54 amps at 24 volts. But not 54 amps coming from the panels, because they're much higher voltage. As a matter of fact, I got them stringed because the controllers are limited to 105 volts. They stringed at 80 volts. So that's probably, I haven't done the math on it, probably about 15-20 amps on the one that's 1305. And the other 2 arrays, the 1100 is roughly 45 amps at its peak, and then the other one is 1220 watts, and at its peak at 50 amps, which gives me roughly 149 amps of charging capacity at max peak. Now we'll get into the batteries at this point in time. I have 3 of them, and they're 24 volts each, and they're 150 amp hour. 150 amp hour at 24 volts, that gives me roughly 3.6 kilowatt of storage. That's at 100%. Now, that would give me a total of 10.8 kilowatts with 3 batteries. That sounds pretty impressive, don't it? Now, what we're going to do is your BMS battery management system for each battery. It's going to limit, on these particular batteries, they're set up at 80%, which will give me a total, with all 3 batteries together, of 8.6 kilowatts of usable. Now, I have an inverter. It's 3,000 watts, 24 volt input, 220 volt output. And the brand of it, about if you're asking, is a SNAT, S-N-A-T. Now, there's another brand, they're identical, just different name, called Sandy, S-N-A-D-I. They're identical, and actually sell for the same price. Now, this is for the folks that wants to work on a budget. This is a fantastic inverter. This one's been running over 2 years, 24/7. And I can't complain. Now, efficient-wise, that's the downside of it. That's the only negative about it. Because it is a pure sine wave, and it is pure off-grid. So, with that said, it's only 85% efficient. So that's going to take my usable get this right. It's going to give me roughly about 7.3 kilowatts usable from my batteries, because of the of the loss between the batteries and the inverter in its conversion. I've took some notes so I can try to be more accurate. If you wonder what I'm doing, I'm also having my coffee, so. Now, I got 3 controllers, which gives me a capability at 60 amps each, up to 180 amps of charge. But see, I don't max it out. I'm at 149 at max. You always want to stay just under the max. That gives you a decent lifestyle. Just like with the batteries, they're set at 80%. You know, I should get, with these batteries, probably between, I would say between 10 to 20 years. It depends, really, on the brand of battery that's inside these 24-volt batteries. But I estimate at least 10 years, and it should be more. Now let's get into loads. As far as loads goes, my major current drain is my refrigerator and deep freeze. Now they're not high wattage. My refrigerator is 170 watts, and my deep freeze is 230 watts. And that's roughly 400 watts together. That runs, I keep this 24/7 on the solar. Now, amp-wise, the refrigerator is 7 amps continuous, you know, pulling off the batteries, and 9.5 pulling off the batteries for the deep freeze. And you take that for 14 hours without any charge coming into the batteries. That's basically what I calculate this on, which is actually a little low, because you're going to have as the sun sets and rises, you're not going to have enough input coming in to overcome. So you're going to have, it's going to gradually overcome. You know, like at 6 a.m. in the morning, I'm probably only getting, I think, about 1 amp maybe at this time of year. So until about 7:30 or 8, you know, I don't get enough to overcome the drain of the refrigerator and deep freeze. Plus the other accessories that's up and running too. You know, I've got a TV and my Wi-Fi and all that stuff, and phone chargers, stuff like that. You could probably add another 150 watts to that when I get up in the mornings like right now. So we're looking at, I'm going to pull off the batteries 150 amps total overnight for these accessories. That's what I've got connected. That's I keep off the grid. That's my major users. 150 amps. When you do the math on that, that's, I'm trying to do this in my head because I didn't make these numbers up. Yeah, no, I didn't do the math on those, so I wait on that. I'm not awake enough to do it in my head right now, because I have, let's see, I had a total, I done it in water, kilowatts, didn't I? Yeah. So I'm at 7.3 kilowatts, 30% less. So I probably only got about 150 amp hours left in my batteries, which, that's okay. The reason I'm using amp hours is because when you start using kilowatts and amp hours back and forth, you get a little bit confused. I do. But 150 amp hours is roughly a little over 3 kilowatts left in the batteries. Of course, my system is at 24 volts now. That's a different calculation if you're using a 48 volt system or a 12 volt. That's, you're going to pull some heavy amperage. I don't recommend going the 12 volt method. It's affordable, cheap, but you're going to be very limited, and you're going to have some heavy wire going to your inverter from the batteries. even with 24 volts, it's pretty heavy. I can't remember the gauge I'm using right now, but it's heavy. But that gives you some idea now. You need to calculate your loads if you're wondering about what I can do with the system. But see, I've built my system gradually over the past 5 years, and that's the reason I'm going over this. You don't have to go full-blown solar. I started out basically just so I could have lights. And I think I started out with 300 watts of solar panel. In a small inverter, I think it was only about 1,000 watts, something like that. It wasn't even pure sine wave. Well, I just used it for charging my phones and some lights during a brownout. So I gradually upgraded, and I learned a hard lesson on batteries. I started out with lead acid batteries, and I tried to use automotive style batteries, huge amp hours. We're talking 200 amp hour batteries. Now, when you're discharging these batteries, and they're not, and the lead acid automotive, they don't like it very much because they're used to a heavy amp draw to start a vehicle, then constantly staying fully charged when the vehicle's running. So if you're slowly discharging those batteries, they don't last long. 6 months is a long life. I have gotten a little longer out of them. So I finally upgraded to the deep cycle battery, still lead acid, which was a mistake. I should have just waited and just been patient and waited for the price of the lithium batteries to come down. But I got lucky. I did sell them, and it offset the cost of me doing my upgrade. But it was actually a mistake. If you're going to do solar, your best investment is your batteries to begin with. Because that's the heart of the system if you're using it for backup. Now, I'm talking about off-grid. If you're in an area where you don't have much of a brownout problem, I would suggest doing an on-grid system. Use the grid for your storage and use it back at night. Or, depends where you live, you use it other ways. And if you got enough credits in there, you can get paid by the electric company. Well, if they don't pay you what they charge you. Now, if you want to figure your loads, you're going to have to look at your appliances and look at the labels on them so you can see what the wattage roll is. I'll use some examples of my own. I'd already told you about my refrigerator at 170 watts and my deep freeze at 230 watts. Most TVs today are LED, and the average TV will pull right around 100 watts. A washing machine, the one I've got here, is 275 watts max, because that's only during the spin cycle, and it pulsating on the wash. Most fans will pull on high 60 watts. So you need to consider that. And here in the Philippines, you basically will run a fan 24/7. Now I've got the one out here on my deck. It's a commercial fan by Westinghouse, and it will pull 150 watts. It's a pretty healthy fan. Now, my outside lights that I've actually got on the grid or connected with my solar, it's only 42 watts. The rest of them are solar lights. I do have, I think, 3 perimeter lights and one on my deck here. And that's all that's on the grid, to be honest with you. Now, my inside lights, that's random use. 25 watts. Everything I've got is LED, by the way, and so I've been fortunate. I've not had to change any of those in almost 6 years now. Now I do have a pump, and that was recently. No, it's not been recent. I've had a pump for quite some time, and it's half horsepower, roughly 350 watts, and it probably will. It takes 30 minutes roughly to fill my tank. So it fills 4 times a day. That's 2 hours a day. So 4 times 3 is 12. A little over a kilowatt a day. It don't sound like much, but over a month's time, you're looking at about 35 kilowatt, 40 thereabouts on average. And I'm doing the math in my head if you want to know current cost. Probably looking at roughly almost 600 pesos a month just to pump water. And that's roughly today's exchange rate, about $11, which is not bad. I'm not complaining. That's if I left it on the grid all the time, which it's not. And a lot of times, especially during the day, it's on solar. Now I do have a hot plate that I make my coffee with, and it's 1,000 watts. And that's about 30 minutes, basically. That's in use. It takes about 15 minutes to make my coffee, then I set it on a low temperature to just keep it hot while I'm having my coffee. And so you're looking about total about 30 minutes, which is not bad. I enjoy my coffee, and I wanted to give people an update on what's actually going on, what you can do. Like I said, you don't have to jump into this full blown. So I have, over the past 2 years, I do have a sub-meter, so I know how many kilowatts I'm using on solar. And I was surprised how much I've saved. Over a 2-year period, I have saved right at 1,600 USD, or 80,000 pesos. And actually, it's a little over 2 years. Time to do the math here. It's about 2.5 years, to be honest with you. But that's a pretty good savings. So you take that from, that gives you extra pocket change per month. And here in the Philippines, I just seen another article where the electric companies has proposed a 3.5 peso increase. That's roughly 7 cents per kilowatt. That don't sound like much, but over a month's time, when you're a heavy user, that's a pretty good increase. We've already had 2 months back to back at roughly, I think 1 month at 1.5 peso, and another month at another 2 peso. We've already had some healthy increases. So you might want to put that in the back of your mind. Electricity is not going to get no cheaper. It's going to go up. And the reason for that is disasters, for one thing. They see the future that people are going to be doing more solar. So their customer base is going to, their usage is going to drop. So they're going to increase it to keep that revenue. I don't know if I'll ever be able to do 100% off grid, but at this point in time, my upgrades, other than I've got a battery coming, that's the last I'm going to do for a while. Now, I will, if things work out for me next year, there will be one more upgrade I will do. That's a hybrid inverter. Now, I want to get one that's capable, that's on-grid, off-grid. And it has a limiter on it. And by definition, I'll tell you what that means. The limiter won't allow it to put electricity on the grid when the grid is off or brown out. It's a safety feature to keep from electrocuting the workers while they're working on lines. And I really like the idea of the on-grid, off-grid deal. Because sooner or later, in my area, net metering will become available. And when it does, this would allow me to, because I will have access on sunny days, to basically turn the meter backwards and use it during bad weather. Speaking of bad weather, yesterday was an extremely overcast day. By adding my extra panels, which gives me, I was working roughly, I was doing the math yesterday, at its peak performance about 30%. And you know, I was surprised. My refrigerator and deep freeze still run on solar overnight. I had actually accumulated enough to keep those going, and I made my coffee this morning. So I'm very pleased with the results, because that was one of my issues. And when I had a really cloudy day, and I didn't have, my batteries had already been drained, there was no backup if they had run out until the sun came up. So that's what I was after. Of course, it's going to reduce my electric consumption too. But I was more concerned about the weather-wise, being cloudy, overcast. I've been able to have enough solar during, say, a major brownout. Say, well, I had several weeks. This tells me that I can keep my refrigeration going, communications going, and that's what my goal is. So, folks, I got to say that I enjoy my new subscribers and the ones that are interested in solar and so forth. I enjoy your comments, and if you don't mind, please subscribe, like, and share. And when I get the other battery up and running, get it balanced in, I'll try to do a video of the system itself, and we'll go from there. And I thank you again.